The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silent, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no secret is revealed. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Welcome to Galactic Earth Fusion, the program that discusses the normal, the paranormal, the natural, the supernatural, the organic to know the inorganic, the weird, the wonderful, all things outrageous, strange, upbeat, and cutting edge, supporting our local communities, internet families, and all forms of sovereign media from around the globe, broadcasting to you from the heart of the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, or should we say White Mountains today, of western North Carolina, just minutes from Asheville, land of the sky. I'm your host, Missy Hill, and yes, Soda is in the studio with me today, and I say it's the White Mountains because we got 2 to 3 inches of snow here, and we actually went sledding. Ron and I have been on snow days. He hasn't been able to get into work because in this part of the country, they're not prepared. They don't get out snow plows or salt the roads, so everything kind of just shuts down in the Asheville area, but we are enjoying it. We went sledding today, and we actually got to take Soda for a little sledding ride, too, because she really enjoys it. So we're just sitting back and having some hot cocoa with the catnip spray right now for Soda, and I can't wait to bring Julien Wells back on because he was on, I guess it was last year, and it seems that 2014 is already rolling by because we're getting to the end of January. Welcome, Julien, to Galactic Earth Fusion.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm pretty excited about today's show.
Yeah, so how have you been, and what is it like out in your neck of the woods? Are you experiencing this, what you call bipolar Arctic weather that we're having here?
Actually, we're not. We're much more on a dry spell. Even though it's raining today, it's just started raining. But essentially, we had 2 weeks of no rain, which is unusual for us. So, and it's actually pretty mild too. Like I actually went camping last weekend, and it wasn't too cold. So the exact opposite.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's very similar to what's going on in California then, because I have friends in the San Francisco Bay Area that were keeping me abreast of how dry it is, and actually it feels like electrically fried from the energies there. We're here with this white snow coming in. It actually was good to clear the crystalline grids, too, because, you know, we're on a bed of quartz here, and when it snows, it kind of cleans the energies up, which I want to discuss first with you, is the energies, because to me they had felt like really sticky and, I don't know, such density and like walking with a ton of bricks on your feet in November and December, and then I felt it really start to shift and lighten up around the 14th, where it feels like some of us that have been doing this work for a while were on like a new ground. I mean, how would you language what I'm experiencing, and what's your experience of it?
Well, those who even take notice of how they feel, of course, will know that a lot of people follow the same sorts of shifts in energy, and we'll be able to even take notice of things that are kind of different now and then. Now, we can factor that into galactic properties, astrological properties, but I'm not that much of a specialist in describing those details, or that can do that, but I can definitely confirm that we are going through major phases, or we have been going through major phases through the end of last year and just the beginning of this year. And yes, only recently have we actually given ourselves some room to breathe again, and we're really given a whole new foundation to stand on, whereas previously we didn't even know what we were going to stand on. And that's a little bit what I wanted to talk about today with regards to exiting the matrix, because one of the elements with exiting the matrix is, what are you exiting into? I mean, what is beyond the matrix? What is there attracting you to leave it, so to speak, right?
Exactly.
So what we've actually begun to step into is this comfort that there is something becoming more grounded on the other side of exiting the matrix. Exiting the matrix is not really the matrix. It's the three-dimensional paradigm, which is a succinct paradigm here on Earth that is established by those in power. Now, they're in power, but they're becoming less so in power the more that people are taking on their own empowerment. You see, the 3D matrix is sort of like a consensus reality that has been established with rules and parameters and things that sort of keep us here. They call them the boundaries of reality, and these are sort of like laws and beliefs and social structures and religions and whatnot, to make sure that we don't actually explore more of who we are internally. So there's like a limit to how far we're meant to explore who we really are. And because of that, we kind of remain shackled and enslaved. And what the big question is once you're free, why are people even asking to be free? They can feel the strain, they can feel the discomfort, and they can feel that something's not right. And as they look more and more towards practices that give them a greater connection with their heart, they're starting to see another world appear, and what's been occurring is that this world is becoming more and more apparent and much more easy to talk about, and much more of a reality, let's just say, because previously a lot of people were still sort of like stunned in fear in terms of making any sort of like shifts in their life. But many people have basically been pushed to the edge over the end of last year and are taking new strides in their life and not compromising on what their heart is wanting. Remember that the heart is your truth alignment. What is true is what your heart wishes. There is no quote-unquote reality other than your own personal universal perception. And that universal perception is not universal. Everyone has their own perception, but I mean it's like universe-wide. It is everything that you can understand and everything that you want to understand and perceive. So we're leaving a perception that what is on the outside is what we're living in, like we're living in a box, and we're moving towards more of a reality where exiting the matrix means that the reality is focused around you solely, and that there are others who have their own individual reality and personal perception that they live within, and we sort of tend to see each other on the process. Like as we're leaving the box of the old reality, we're observing each other following similar patterns, and that we have common interests, and we sort of follow each other on the same path at the same time. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a bit, because that more and more is becoming more clear that we're finding different soul groups that are exiting the matrix in similar fashion and have similar types of releases that they're going through, similar contexts. Like some are still affected by the political system. Some are very tied down to the illusions of what money really is. And Some are tied down to the heinous acts that have been discovered that the old system perpetuated. And, many are tied down because of relationships and not knowing the truth behind what a functional relationship really is. There's only what we've been taught within our society, what the society is accepting of a relationship, which is a program. So all these things are meant to basically go through a transition at this point, and that's why my show is called The Transitioning, and that's on Saturdays, and that's what my video blog is also called, The Daily Transitioning on YouTube. But this is all these different things that we're letting go of in favor of what we prefer. Note that there's that broader part of you, we'll call it the higher self, that has the bigger picture, that has this understanding beyond what your awake day-to-day mind is able to perceive. It has a picture, kind of like a clear understanding. You can call it the wise version of you, that part of you that instinctually has information that's perfectly appropriate. Now, this higher part of you does influence your life nearly completely. That's not to say that you don't have free will within your body, but this free will is part of another illusion where you feel that you're making decisions, and you are. It's just you're not aware of that broader part of yourself that's a part of the decisions you're making. And it's important to take note of your higher self, because your higher self is kind of the one who also needs to be in alignment with your joy. It's kind of like you've got your higher self, you've got your physical body, and you've got your conscious mind, right? And the higher self has interest, your conscious self has interest, and your body has particular interest. And what happens is that the higher self is basically the one who's holding a broader perspective and a broader momentum over your life. It doesn't care if you pick your nose or how you walk. It cares about the major life experiences you go through. So it basically leads you in a direction of trying to find your joy. Basically, the more that you are feeling your heart and in love with your action and in love with who you are and what you're doing, that is represented through the body. The body gives you these signals through the emotion and the endocrine system. It gives you these physical signals of, yes, this is what puts me fully in alignment with my higher being, with my body, and with my conscious mind. And so, obviously, we're facing a third-dimensional paradigm reality that's designed by those who want to keep us at a certain vibrational level and sort of entrapped and enslaved. What we're facing is things that we don't like to do. Now, each of these things that we don't want to do, each of these things that bring us fear, each of these things that we're uncomfortable with, they're fundamentally not in alignment with our heart, okay? Now, it's what we've been convinced of is that this outer societal structure that we're in is more important than who we are internally. But all we need to do is essentially realize that our perceptions are our king. How we perceive is what our conscious five senses are doing. Our perceptions is what we have control over day to day in the moment. Our body has its own controls, and our higher being has its own controls. Don't worry about what they do. Just be the one that is responsible for how you're perceiving. As you know, you can see the good in something, you can see the bad in something. But based on what you basically figure out, you can decide that something's a good thing or something's a bad thing. And depending on how you perceive, you basically train yourself to adjust your perceptions so that you can be more in alignment. Now, for instance, it's all information, right? We're all in a state of observing information. Each of us can see it from a different perspective, and we know. We have evidence to say that when a car crash occurs, people from different angles perceive different experiences, and they tell the story a different way. That is fundamentally how we always are. There's no real way to be fully observing exactly what someone else. When we do observe reality from the same perceptual point, we call that empathy. We say that I understand it from where you're coming from. I empathize with you. I feel that I'm seeing it from your point of view, and so I have empathy. I can feel the way you are about a relative subject. But empathy empathy is still a degree. Empathy is still only a relative subject. You can be more in empathy or less in empathy. No one is generally 100% in empathy, though we come pretty close the more intimate we become with each other. So anyways, the point here is to master your perception. And to master your perception is literally all that matters in your waking state to determine what you want your experience to be. Because via the law of attraction, you know that what you put your perception to is what's attracted into your reality. Your reality is only ever perceived. It's experienced through perception. And although we call this a concrete physical world, it's not so much that way. It's much more flexible once you've given yourself a chance to perceive the energy field before it becomes physical. That's what I've been doing. I've been actually perceiving energy before it becomes material. I've been perceiving the momentum in a conversation before subjects come up. It's almost like a kind of precognition. But basically the energy that I've gained in visual representation is a tool for me to realize that what we succinctly live is a matter of our perception. And so what do? I realize that I can actually change what I'm focusing on. I can change what I'm even perceiving in an energetic sense. For instance, I can watch two people talking across the way. I don't know what they're talking about, but I'm observing their auras, and I can sense a shift. I can even visually see sort of like this. It looks a little bit like when somebody breathes in the cold, like this fog from their mouth. You actually sort of like see this fog go out of someone's mouth and into the other person, and the other person's color, the color of the aura shifts. And then there's this other thing where it feels like they're sucking in through their mouth and sucking in with their heart this sort of energy from the other person. And this becomes sort of like an energy vampirism effect. Now, I can choose to see this, and I can say, oh, my God, somebody's being an energy vampire. But at the other level, until I decide to perceive that this person is actually asking for an experience this way, that is the person's perception that they must be sucked by the other person, then basically it's kind of like a magnet. Which side is pushing and which side is pulling, right? When you've got a negative and a positive. You can kind of see the direction of the flow. You could say something's going from here to there, but is it the attraction or the projection that's actually more important? And it's actually both. So the law of attraction is also the law of projection at the same time. And that's what we can talk about as well. Anyhow, I'll give myself a breather.
That is a very good point. I just want to make a couple comments because you went. I had comments which I probably don't remember, but one thing I do want to say is the metaphor of the matrix that I like to use is in the tarot deck, in the major arcana. There's a card called the Devil card, and it looks like these two beings that are with the devil in this card. They have chains on them, but they can get out of the chains at any time. They don't realize their enslavement, okay? They're choosing not to see that they can just exit and get out of those chains. And another thing, when you were talking about the heart, I was going to comment on, is that the heart is not polarized. It's the organ within our body that represents unity consciousness, where our brain is polarized, and that's why it's easily manipulated because of the way it's been built with the reptilian brain and the limbic system, and the fact that even the two sides of the head you can see with the parietal lobes are not integrated. So it's about really integrating our brain with the pituitary, pineal, and hypothalamus, which I call the Holy Trinity, and synchronizing that with the third eye with the heart is the way I like to see it. So the heart leads and the head follows, but the two want to be in sync because we need the head, because we need to access the information. And I also like what you said about the energy vampirism and the attraction and the projection. Actually, I was just watching something that actually showed that. There happened to be some kind of mini-series on Netflix, and it was the whole thing where this being was taking energy out of the other person, and it was just like the other day. So it was a perfect representation of what you said, now I want to talk about the difference between the law of attraction and the law of allowing, because there's been something with the energy lately that we have to do things in the moment as they show up. We can project a little bit, like they were going on a trip and we have to make airline reservations. So we're projecting, we're going on this trip next week, we're going on this trip like next week. We are getting on a plane to go to Puerto Rico a week from tomorrow, so that's making plans. However, there's certain times you can't make plans, and you need to be so in the moment that you set your intention, and then you have to allow this energy to come in, to become stable enough, and find focus to do the one task, because there's something even in the word attraction that sounds rough. It's got this where, projection, attract, we're allowing, it's like this wave. You're allowing it to come in, and you're riding the wave.
Now, you'll note that there is a sense to master reality, and that's this desire within every human being to sort of be a master of their surroundings and to be truly in control, right? And that's a form of perception. In order to promote that perception that we're truly in control, what we do is we try to understand how everything's working, right? We use our mind and we try to understand the mathematics, or we try to put it into logic, because logic is easy to access, right? Feelings, less easy to access. Logic, more easy to access. So we prefer a system of logic when we understand something. And so when we are choosing to have an experience, we've learned about the law of attraction, and we say, all right, so I want to attract this thing. And, I'm told I'm just supposed to, put it out there and then let it happen, right? And you're wondering, well, that's just not working for me. A lot of people have heard that. A lot of people have read The Secret. There's just something not working. What am I missing? That's the big question. And this aspect of allowing is a big part. But the thing is, a lot of people don't want to actually allow. What they want to do is they want to be very conscious of the process, because we're very analytical. We're very into the specifics, right? Because we have a lot of intentions, and we're very detail-oriented in our level of understanding and within consciousness. If you look at the animal kingdom, they're master allowers, but they're not master attractors. They're not master inviters of their experience, okay? That's kind of the difference between them and us. So this idea of moving to a more natural, organic state of allowing is tricky, because we've literally, the process of becoming human in evolution is to basically be more decisive. Now, I've come to understand more of what this really is, what is really going on about here. So let's start a little bit more from scratch. I'll reflect again on the fact that you have a higher being, which is broader than what your awake mind is used to understanding. So it's a broader part of yourself. It's part of your body. It's not someone else's higher being. It's yours. Okay. You don't really share it much. You do have succinct soulmates and whatever that share the same higher being. But we're not going to get into that. For the sake of simplicity, you have your higher being, and it is interested in promoting wonderful experiences for your life. And it's promoted in everything that gets it to grow. So it's basically looking for experiences for itself, too, only needs you to go through it. Okay, so your higher being doesn't know everything. It has access to God and the Akashic and all these sorts of things, but for the most part, it's interested in what you're up to, okay? So it is personal. It's not your soul. Your soul is something else. But basically, it's this broader part of you. When you're super intuitive, then you have access to it. When you're accessing your imagination, this is the higher being. Literally, all your thoughts are higher being thoughts. You just don't recognize them that way because you've associated them in different ways. Now, what we're doing is we're down here. We are the five senses. We are that part that perceives what is attracted. We don't even do the attracting. The higher being is more like our secretary that does all the business work and gets everything to happen, because it can see what needs to happen. It can see all the details. It says, okay, if I want this to happen, then I'm going to have to do all these things. And because it has no limits, right, since it has a broader perspective, it doesn't have an issue with saying, if me down here, I want a Ferrari, well, the higher being doesn't have any problem with getting a Ferrari. It's just a matter of bringing things into alignment so it makes it easier for you to perceive a reality where you have a Ferrari, right? Now, what's happening here is that in the animal kingdom, the animal says, has very few needs, there's very few choices to perceive. And so within that, the higher being of an animal is relatively simplified. It's easy to bring about, its experience. Humans, basically more complicated. And what humans really want to do is humans want to be in control. They want to perceive and they want to decide. But even your decisions are part of what your higher being is. Because what your higher being is saying is, I want, to have this experience, and I'm going to use you, the body, to determine how I'm doing and how well I'm creating that, right? So when you and your higher being are not in sync, you have a crummy experience. You're uncomfortable. And so the higher being is constantly trying to figure out ways of changing it so that you're more comfortable. You're basically always seeking happiness. That's the process of optimizing your approach to life in perception. Now, the higher being sometimes gets really ambitious. It says, I want a Ferrari. And you could be, impoverished and living on the street. And you're wondering, there's no way I'm going to have a Ferrari. But that's what you want. So through the process of attraction, you can get yourself a Ferrari, which is giving yourself the opportunity to perceive how it's possible. And that's what starts getting into what is called the law of allowing. Because most of us are like, no, I can't see that Ferrari. It's not going to happen. This is never going to happen. So basically, your perception is very far from the reality where you're holding one. And so all you need to do is look at, and what your higher being thinks all it needs to do, is just to have you be in alignment. You have to have the energy resonance. So there's multiple parallel realities of you. There's billions splitting off every second. You're basically in one frame of existence amongst a nearly infinite frames of existence of perception. You're here where you are now. You could be somewhere else if you'd made a different decision a second before now. So note that there is a reality where you have the Ferrari, and the idea is to journey one step at a time from this one to that one. And depending on how sort of awake you are and how good you are at pivoting your alignment and adjusting your perception, that's the skill that leads you towards the final reality that you wish to experience. Now, most people who are living impoverished, basically, one of their issues that they face is that they don't feel they have control, so they don't have any empowerment. Empowerment for the ego, or in any general way, is the literal cue and marker to show you how functional you feel in this dimension of existence. It's literally access to energy. The more you have access to energy, the more that you have to work with, which basically you call it, I feel empowered. This comes, easily when we have a lot of money. I feel empowered to do something because I have money. Empowered because I have lots of friends. I feel empowered because I've got, powerful parents in political places. But you'll note that all those things that we choose to be empowered from the outside still have relativity. You're not empowered just because your parents are great political figures to go get a Ferrari, okay? But those who are empowered and that are empowered through money, who have a lot of money, well then yes, those ones feel more empowered to get themselves a Ferrari, okay? And maybe just because you're empowered and you have lots of friends, that's not the kind of empowerment that's used to get a car. The idea is to actually release yourself from any type of specific empowerment, because it's kind of like a form of energy that's been given form. Being rich, having money, that is a form of energy. Having lots of friends, that is a form of energy. Now, you're empowered in those places, but what you may want to do is experience something that has nothing to do with friends. Maybe has something on a political spectrum that you want to experience. So the idea is to universalize energy, universalize your empowerment. And in order to universalize that empowerment, you're going to want to not be so attached to the outside. You're going to want to basically be empowered with recognizing what is really going on, recognizing who you really are. Because the more you know about who you really are and the way things really work, you're fundamentally going to be more comfortable, and you're going to develop this sense of empowerment. The empowerment is kind of like the juice or the grease that helps you pivot your alignment and your perception. And the only reason why we even care to adjust our perception is because we feel resonant. We feel joy in that process. Now, I know you mentioned earlier about the heart and how that is difficult to work with, but there's the heart that I'm talking about is not the physical heart. The sensations of joy that come through the body is identified as emotions. Those are a process that the body gives you as cues to say that, yes, energy is coming into the body, because the more that you're in joy, the more energy is literally coming through your physical body and projecting your physical experience, not just your body gets to receive the example. Your outer reality perception is also adjusting, okay? You know that feeling when you're nervous to ask a girl out because you don't know if she likes you, or a boy, or whatever. But the point is, you know you're nervous and you're unsure of if they're going to say yes or no. And what your higher being is trying to do is saying, yes, you can have that experience. There is multiple realities. There's the one where she says no, she will go out with you, and there's the one that she says yes. And we want you to receive the answer yes. So what you need to go in there with is a positive attitude, as they say. You know, be upbeat. Positive means you have more energy. More energy means you're more resonant with your truth. What your truth is basically a form of more empowerment. And so you seek the path of greater empowerment. You get yourself psyched up in joy. You know, you basically give up these notions that there's anything holding you back, and then you go forward, and, of course, you know, you're always given that opportunity to receive exactly what you wish. So let's talk about what these limitations are which prevent us from allowing, right? Given the circumstance of the car, actually, we'll go with the asking the girl out. Given the circumstances of the girl, you can just basically put your perception into the field of logic. You could say, well, I think she already has a boyfriend. That's going to make it really hard to pivot into a realm where she's going to go out with you. Or you can say, you can look in a direction of, actually, she had a boyfriend. Now I think of it, she had a boyfriend. Now I realize that's a past tense. And that, actually, her boyfriend was a lot like me, and I think, and I'm deciding to perceive a reality where I think that boyfriend, had these sort of failings, and I'm actually a perfect match for her because I'm the opposite of those failings. So actually, I can perceive this is going to go really well. And now he's thinking about timing. When are you going to ask her? Well, okay, now I'm looking at... is tomorrow a good time? I'd like to go out as soon as possible, but, maybe I can decide to perceive that she's busy tomorrow, or maybe I can perceive that, there's something else I need to do, so tomorrow's not a good day. Or I could say, no time is better than the present. I'm going to ask her out right now. I'm not going to even give myself a chance to come up with obstacles in my perception. Now, we are logic-based, so we are interested in balancing lots of information. The law of allowing doesn't require lots of information. The only thing that comes of observing lots of information, okay, is that you actually create a more dense belief, okay? The more that we use our logic, the more we create what is considered a belief, which means that you can repeat the pattern. When we have a belief, it is grounded. It is grounded energy perception. Right? So that we can come back and we can repeat it. We can tell our friends it. We can basically share it. So this energy is literally deposited into a way that it's not going to change. That's why we live in a physical world. We live in physical existences, and we wish to have physical things that we can use as tools so that we can move forward. So we look around for where Energy has been deposited into something like a belief, and then we use the belief and we say the belief is now that this can happen. But in the end, you can be totally free-flowing, like, someone who has no idea if they're going to be okay or not. And as long as you're happy going forward, you don't have any positive or negative beliefs, and you're on the 51 percentile direction of actually being pretty happy about it, chances are she's going to say yes. And you'll know, even the factor based on, women are attracted to and, powerful beings, or, people are attractive when they're flowing and when they seem to have a lot of energy within them. That itself is also an attractive factor. Okay? Are you following me at this point?
Oh, yes. I was just also going to comment on this, however, about the not projecting. To the point of just really just seeing what shows up. And even still, we're still projecting on some level. But I want to talk about that, of how I guess it's just really aligning with your desire, but you're not projecting. I mean, it's hard to even explain, but I've noticed this with myself. I don't feel like I project like I used to. I just want to see what shows up. What's the most important thing for me to do is just work on myself. It's not about whether I have a Ferrari, because I wanted to bring up some examples with the Ferrari. To say somebody projects they want the Ferrari, then they decide, well, I project I want this Ferrari, it's come, but I have to, even though it was debt-free, for me to buy the tires on this thing is very expensive. It's got to get into the shop and all this, and I wanted all these toys. But then when the person gets all these toys, they see they actually have to manage their stuff, and actually sometimes simplicity and freedom is better. Like if I want a Ferrari, maybe I'll just go rent a Ferrari for a weekend. I'll drive it, and then I'll turn it in, and then maybe I'll go rent a boat, because then I don't have the responsibility of all these things that actually consume energy and life force.
Yeah.
And keep me from flowing free.
So one of the things I've found out is that energy doesn't expire or anything. It just moves from place to place. Okay? And so this feeling of feeling empowered is when you have command of a lot of energy. Okay? That's really what being empowered is. Now, the more empowered you feel, and that can be energy of a certain type, the money type of power, empowerment, energy, because energy has form. And it has, we just call energy different colors, okay? The color of, money energy, we'll just call that green. We'll call the Ferrari energy red, okay? So you have a certain amount of empowerment towards a Ferrari if you already own one, okay? But you don't even have to have the green kind of energy in order to have the red energy. You just have to have empowerment because, somebody gave you a red Ferrari or something. But what we want to talk about, I think, is this aspect of allowing, because oftentimes we think that we can figure it all out. We say to get from here to there, we can figure it out. And yeah, you can figure it out, but sometimes there's so many beliefs that keep you from really attaining it. You're going to face a lot of challenges to get there. Just like we're saying, okay, I got it, but that's just the basics. Now I've got to, pay for the insurance. I've got, I can't even drive this to work because there's these speed bumps that'll wreck the car. Oh my gosh. There's all these different other functional things that come up, right? You're like, well, that sucked. I attracted it, but I didn't even consider all these other things. Well, when you're truly in alignment, okay, you may not get that Ferrari right away, but guess what will happen? If your heart is set on that Ferrari, okay, and that's, you've been dreaming of Ferrari since you were a child, and your heart is set on that, well, guess what? What will happen before, you could get the Ferrari in the snap of the fingers is what I've found out. But what will happen in the transition is you say, all right, Ferrari, I know you're coming, and you're going to come at just the right time. And what do I mean by just the right time? I mean everything that would make you uncomfortable having a Ferrari gets organized in the background, right? So one, you're probably not even going to have to pay for your Ferrari because one, you're attracting this perfect individual who wants to give you his Ferrari. And on another note, you're attracting even, a kind of environment where you can drive to work without the speed bumps wrecking your wheels, wrecking your fenders. And on another level, you're kind of given the right kind of car that's perfectly tuned up and is under warranty so that no matter what issues come of it, it's covered. And then on another level, you're basically attracting a circumstance where your insurance gives you some kind of strange benefit for being a member for so long, and it's not going to cost so much. And it's all seemingly going to show up at just the right around the right time, and then all piles together, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I got a Ferrari for free. I know where I can park it near work. The insurance somehow is not digging me for having an expensive car. And, in fact, I just got a raise that covers the difference of my new insurance. And it's like, wow, how did that all happen at the same time? That's because you allowed it. Now, your conscious mind would not have been able to figure all those things out. It's not as good at sort of like being a personal organizer as your higher being did, because your higher being was often like whole other dimensions of getting things done, you see. So the allowing really is knowing that someone else can bring it to you better than you could figure it out yourself. Now, because we're so logic-minded, we do want to sometimes try to figure things out, and that's fine. That's fine. And if the more that you want to discover your empowerment, the more that you feel that you're truly in control, that can be based on faith that your higher being is with you, or that can be based on a faith that, you've done something before so you can do that again. So anything that you've done before, you're empowered to do it, right? You know how that works. That's why we go to school and we practice, being an intern and being this. We feel more empowered the more we can do that, right? But there's lots of people who've never done it before, and all of a sudden they're the best at it. You're like, how did you do that? Like, well, that's faith, There's many different factors that affect faith. We can basically reflect on our outer surroundings, or we can literally be that in harmony with our higher being getting the job done for us. So what is allowing? When we're really thinking about it, we're really talking about letting our broader aspect of us do most of the attracting for us. All you need to do as the perceiver is perceive and connect with what your higher being is wanting. Now, what you're thinking right now is, yeah, me and my little conscious ego, whatever, I'm the one who chose the Ferrari. No, you're not. Okay? Your higher being chose the Ferrari. What your higher being is doing for you is giving you a chance to experience it and go through the emotional spectrum of enjoying it. Okay? Your job and the body's job is to receive and perceive. Okay? Now, at the same time, you can't, and when I talk about you are the perceiver, that doesn't not include the higher mind. There's no point where the higher mind or your body is not there, obviously, right? You're always connected. So there's no such thing as, I'm just the five senses. But you'll note that the five senses and your awake self, where is it really playing into? It's playing into the details, okay? Higher mind got you the Ferrari. Now you play with it. Okay? Mm-hmm. You decide how you want to walk. You decide what you're going to say. So you're more like a details version of the higher mind. So anything that seems too complicated for you to figure out, or you're too worried about how it's going to happen, don't figure it out. That's a job for someone else. That someone else is your higher logistics person, okay? That's it. Everything that you can figure out, go ahead and do it. And you'll be more empowered by only doing what you feel comfortable doing. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, tell somebody else to do it, and that'll be your higher self. And the more that you see that working, the process of that working, the more that you will literally be a happier person, I think. That's what's happening for me.
That's what I've always said. You expect an outcome, but you don't know how that's going to happen at all, so it's like you put a seed in the ground and you expect that seed will grow, but you're not the one that's the sunlight or the water, so it all has to come about in an orchestrated divine way where it's not up to us. And I think the thing I'm getting now about the Ferrari, the higher self brought the Ferrari because the ego stops projecting. If when the ego's in line with the higher self and you just want to work on yourself, the higher self brings something better than the ego wants anyway.
Yes,
because I've always remembered
correct.
the affirmation I used to say years ago, this or something better.
Yeah. Now, you'll note that the higher being is still a puzzling machine. It's not perfect. I mean, it's perfect and everything is perfect, but you'll note that one person can get a Ferrari. Say 5, 10 people decide to all challenge themselves to get a Ferrari, okay? And the challenge is who gets the Ferrari first, okay? Each one of their higher beings will be in a different attunement to getting a Ferrari. Not all of them, not all higher beings are the same. In fact, they're all different. So depending on how much each one wants it and how much wisdom it has to achieve that, okay, they're all going to get Ferraris at different times. It's nigh impossible for them to all get them at the same time unless that collection of people are all basically highly in unity to each other and all sort of share off the same processes that make it happen, okay? So don't worry about how it's been done before, and don't worry about how it can happen. The more you give over the logistics of figuring it out to a broader self, and this can be on anything. This can be on, like, deciding what cereal you're going to eat in the morning, okay? Synchronicity will put it in your lap and let you know what cereal you're going to eat in the morning. I mean, first thing you see in the morning is, like, a donut. And you're like, oh, I don't want a donut. But when you look into the cupboard, the thing that's the closest to a donut is Cheerios. You're like, oh, Cheerios is what I wanted. That's really what I wanted. I didn't want Frosted Flakes or anything like that. I wanted Cheerios because now I feel that synchronicity there that makes me happy, It's you can do it in the moment or you can do it for bigger things. And generally, the broad strokes, that is your opportunity to say, if I'm in love with this, then I can have it. Now, there is what people are perceiving as the other way around. You can go through the details. You can go through the details as much as you want. You want to help the higher being? Well, it doesn't really need your help. But sure, you can gain empowerment by understanding how the higher being does it. So if you follow along with the higher being's processes, you can learn a thing or two from your higher being, right? So what you do is you do this practice of, I can help you with a couple of these obstacles, I can address these, maybe I have a couple fears here and whatnot. And typically, if, sometimes you want something like a Ferrari, the higher being will say, you know what, I think this is something you can take care of. I think this is something more for you, right? And that's things like fears. That's like fears of like, oh my God, if I have a Ferrari, all these problems can happen. So you know what? I think you want to handle that. You handle that. And so you'll be facing this fear, and it won't go away. You're like, how do I get rid of this fear of, all these money issues? How do I get rid of this fear? Well, then, then you've got that issue, and you say, higher being, I've got this fear with regards to the Ferrari thing. And the higher being says, all right, well, do you want to logic your way out of the fear? You want to give yourself some good examples? You don't have to. If you want, you can give me the fear of the money thing, and I'll take care of it for now. And so you say, yeah, please. I'm not cool with this. Just, help me out. Help me so that, I'll get it when I'm not afraid and help process in the background my fears. So what the higher being does is those little nibbles, right? It gets you through these little life experiences, that help you to not have a fear, right? It starts showing you examples of other people who don't have that much money and seem to have Ferraris and how they deal with it. And you start hearing stories like, oh, I feel kind of okay because I can see it working logically in these other people's lives that, these people who don't have a lot of money still have a Ferrari, Or the story about the girl that, like I'm not so good looking and she's the hottest girl in school. And you don't believe it, but you start seeing these stories. Your higher being says, all right, you're afraid, that you don't deserve her, so what we're going to do is we're going to toss in here a couple things in your past, these novels you happen to start reading, and it tells you exactly what your fear is, and, it walks you through it in the book, and then you feel good. So that's like a little tool. You didn't even have to do it logically. You're literally given a tool by higher being. Says, all right, I'm going to give you a little spoon. I'm going to feed you this help you through it. Okay, so you get to have as much control or little as you like, but at the same time, remembering that it's all perception. Even the higher being is a tool of perception of its oneness with everything, okay? And as long as you are in alignment with the recognition that there are broader parts of yourself that do a lot, pretty much most of your life work, and that you are not fundamentally disconnected, the only time you're disconnected with your higher being is when you're not happy. So the more that you find yourself in happiness, you'll find even in many cases that you will gain greater spiritual insight as well.
So now I want to talk a little bit about attachment, because say you've gotten the Ferrari and then the higher self decides, well, now we're going to take the Ferrari away because we want the being to be happy with or without the Ferrari. It's sort of like in Buddhism that our attachment to things creates suffering. So I want you to address that through the metaphor of this Ferrari. Or say everybody else had the Ferrari and the higher self decides to give somebody a Lamborghini, and they were even more happy with that car than what they thought.
Yeah.
So there's this.
So you can attract a Ferrari, and you'd be like, that can be an experiment in my consciousness. I'm going to get myself a Ferrari. I'm going to get myself a Ferrari. I'm going to get myself a Ferrari. You know, you're basically, attuning yourself, trying to figure out why you'd be happy with a Ferrari. Like, I'll be happy with a Ferrari because I'll be able to drive fast. I got to have a Ferrari because I'll attract girls. I'm going to have a Ferrari because I'll feel good, with the hood down and my wind blowing my hair. I'll feel good with a Ferrari because people give me compliments. I'll feel good with a Ferrari for all these good reasons. And then you get yourself, you're like, Ferrari sounds like fun. I decided it's gonna be fun. Wonderful. As long as you see it as fun, you're in alignment with your higher being. Your higher being will help you out with that. It's like, all right, if you can see it as fun, let's do it. I'll help you with that. Higher being, not so interested in doing things to piss you off or make you upset. The only time that you can convince your higher being to give you something that makes you upset or makes you cry is you say, you know what, if I go through this pain, I'm going to really know what I don't like. And then the higher being goes, oh, great, I'll give you something painful to remind you what you really, really love. That's fine. I'll do that, and it may be temporary. It may be a big lesson or something like that. So with the Ferrari, you say, all right, I got my Ferrari, wonderful. But you know what? After a while, I'm no longer happy with the Ferrari. It's no longer really in my alignment. I've kind of done this, done that, and Ferrari, damn, I've put so much energy into this Ferrari. Do I need to keep it? That's the other question. No. If you're not in alignment with Ferrari anymore, don't keep it. What would now be what makes you in alignment? You know what? My friend wanted a Ferrari, and he really pointed out how much he enjoyed joining me for rides, and he's actually like a supercar aficionado. I don't even know anything about cars. I know he'll appreciate it, and I know that will make me in alignment with my heart. So that's an example of giving something up, because you realize that you're even more in alignment giving it to your friend than you enjoying it any longer. You may enjoy it for a couple moments and a couple experiences, right? And you may not even be like, it's gone forever. It's like, dude, can I borrow the Ferrari, that I gave you, to go on this little trip here? And I'm sure that friend will say yes. Oh, yeah, you're the guy who gave me the Ferrari. Absolutely, I owe you one sort of feel. And you'll be in alignment with that opportunity, too. You don't even have to completely say that it's gone, okay? Life in reality is plastic per your ability to perceive how it works. The only trick is we get so used to the patterns that we've learned and discovered here, we start to think that this is the way it is, okay? This is the way it's got to be. This is the way I've always observed it. But it sometimes takes the aspect of your imagination. Use your imagination to help yourself step out. Your imagination is your higher being, okay? Your imagination is an opportunity for you to live a new truth. So follow the imagination, especially the imagination that gives you joy and makes you feel good. Because when you get feeling good, that means you're gaining energy to do just that. The energy's coming in, that means it's happening. cover it?
Yes, on some level, but not the Buddhist aspect of sometimes things happen, and I wonder if that's the higher self teaching us not to be attached to material things because our joy comes from within, not having stuff. And sometimes we have to go, I mean, I don't know what I want to explore with you is what creates loss in our life. Like
what creates loss?
Loss, like something will happen and a person has to give up the Ferrari or a relationship ends, and it's to teach the person it doesn't matter if there's high or lows, they need to be joyful and keep their balance no matter what the scenery is in their life. They're not the scenery. The Ferrari is part of the scenery. The relationship is part of the scenery.
Well, then I'm gonna simplify it here, okay? And that's saying, what's the point of having negative experiences at all? Okay? Because what can be perceived as negative is something that you don't want.
Negative. I like that.
Well, I understand. Let's just call it things that you wouldn't normally align with. Okay? So I don't want to be a monk. I don't want to live without a lot of the joys of my personal experience. I'm not interested in detaching from society and living on a mountain. Okay? All these things are working for me. Okay? Now, if none of these things is working for you, well, then the monk lifestyle will help you be in a detached state so that you can realign with your higher self and then start with baby steps to introduce them again. Most people don't stay on the mountain forever, okay? They baby step themselves and they take one step at a time and say, I can handle a couple things, just one or two things at a time. And, you know, I can maintain my happiness knowing that I can keep my connection with my higher being, because the point is to be in happiness, right? Or at least at a neutral state, not making things worse. You don't want to go past that 51% of unhappiness, right? Right.
Yeah.
So what you do in this process of giving things up is you only give up the things that are in your way, okay? If they're more than 50% uncomfortable, that's what you give up, okay? You don't give up your underwear because that keeps, you know, your nether parts warm, okay? You don't have a problem with wearing underwear.
Okay, I see where you're going with this now. So this is assuming we've already been the monk on the mountaintop and we've unplugged from the old relationships and the old jobs and the old whatever that's not working to re-find ourselves so we have less coming in, because the problem has been in this society of the matrix, we've had so much stuff coming in that the being can't even figure out what their higher alignment is. So this happens after the being has unplugged and all that. Then you're starting with these steps of not
you're talking about like a clear
things.
Yeah, you're talking about a clear slate. It's easier to deal with a couple things than a lot of things. Okay? Because a lot of things becomes like a homogenized experience. When in reality, as you know, we only live this very moment. We don't live the future, we don't live the past. Okay, we're living this very moment. How many things can you play with in this very moment? Okay? You don't even need to acquire objects if you're always in alignment with this very moment. If this very moment says, I would like to play with that, well, guess what? You can have that, and you don't even have to own it. Okay? That experience will come to you and will be just the way it should be. You'll meet someone who has that. Maybe they'll let you borrow it. Maybe they'll tell you what it was like, and maybe they tell you that it wasn't so fun after all. And you're like, okay, well, now I don't have that desire anymore. Okay?
Yes, and as we move into this new ground with the like-minded people, if I want to drive a Ferrari, somebody will show up in my life with a Ferrari, and I can drive it, and I don't have to own it, and maybe there's something that I have that they want to experience or something like that, and it's just going to be a free-flowing situation. Now
that is a very realistic scenario, okay, for the world that is beyond the matrix, Okay, that's a very realistic scenario, and the reason why I say that is, as you know, I have a connection with the Pleiadians, okay, and basically no one owns anything. The only thing that anyone ever does is they steward things, okay?
Exactly.
What I mean by steward things is that they basically serve so that that energy can maintain itself so it doesn't age, all right? So everything atrophies, as you know, right? Everything physically atrophies. The buildings get old, plants get old, whatever. Everything atrophies. The only reason why anything atrophies is lack of attention to the energy structure. So as long as someone is keeping it alive, kind of like feeding the plant by watering it every day, then it remains. Otherwise, the energy will prefer to transition. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
That is basically it. Everything transitions. And all energy wants to have purpose. So what you have is you have these people who ground certain things and give them purpose. Okay? You're the steward to your house. The more that you're in alignment with being a steward, the less the factor of money will matter, because you know what? The house will appreciate you stewarding it. Okay?
Yeah,
they will find ways and circumstances to make sure that you keep being the steward. That's what it is. So that's basically what the paradigm is very understood from those that live in a broader perspective dimension. Okay? Now, that is helpful because, yes, part of exiting the matrix is being motivated by something beyond what you're in right now, right? And there's so many star seeds here. They're highly motivated by what's not here right now. They remember, especially the third group, they remember what it was like to live in their old societies. That's why they're here. That's why they're implanted here. That's why they showed up here, because, you know, they want to bring their society back, human experience here. Okay? They want to relive it. They have a higher being that has all these memories, but it can't tell us them because there's no way to sort of like make use of them. It's just going to be too painful. So it slowly introduces them more and more to try and give you the opportunity to allow you to feel the way you want to feel. Okay? So yes, jumped into high polarity experience is not typically what our friends out there do. They don't do that so much. But when they recognize an age where everyone is kind of tired with the way things are, they go through these things where they challenge themselves. They do the slingshot effect, right? So they go through the pain so that they can go much further afterwards, so that they can shoot themselves into wonderful, really brand new paradigms. So we can talk about all the sustainable structures that have already existed out in the galactic space, but even they are evolving through our journey. So what is really next isn't necessarily emerging with their culture. So many of us will enjoy it. Many who aren't even starseeds will be like, that's fantastic. It's going to take forever and lifetimes to explore these other cultures. But even so, when those cultures begin, many of them that want to expand, just like we want to, they'll come here and they'll join us, and together we'll create a reality that's an homogenized version and co-creation with them. That's what I see.
It's interesting.
Well, that's what motivates me. That's part of why I'm interested in exiting the matrix and making things move forward. But as you can see, that's my motivation. Once I was able to see the Pleiadians and actually bilocate and observe their lifestyle, I was like, that's what I want. Yes. Move in that direction. Allow me the opportunity to go there and bring it into density, my physical experience. And that's what's been happening. Slowly but surely. I'm going through all those things that need to occur first before I logically am comfortable going there. I could do the come pick me up and pick me out there, but they've basically refused that. They basically refused to say that's an option here, because they're like, no, you stay in the game. We need you to win the game down there for us. So I'm like, oh, all right, fine. I'll do it.
Well, that's true because you're an energy placement holder. We're the energy placement holders because this has to be physicalized. It has to be, what it is unity consciousness has to be physically embodied. That's what I was talking about.
It makes it more. Well, here's another way to explain it a little bit more simply. There's more energy in the human world than in most places. Now, they have less concentrated energy in their worlds. We have more energy concentration. There's more energy per square inch, so to speak. So what, you remember the movie Superman? Okay?
Uh-huh.
And Superman, he goes from a dense world, a dense reality dimension, and shows up here, and guess what? He's like bulletproof. But on his planet, he's not bulletproof. On his planet, he can't fly. Okay, he has so much energy potential here, he could fly. But he's solid. He can project through his eyes extreme intensity, which turn into laser beams. Okay, this is not a mistake, the Superman concept. Okay, we are literally on the course of being like Superman to these other cultures because, you know, the intensity that comes with our vibrational state is a lot of energy. In fact, it's so much energy, it's like a thick suit to try to change or to move. And that's also why the bad guys are interested in us too. Okay?
That's absolutely right.
It's, you know, you only need Earth. You don't need 1,000 worlds. You just need Earth. Earth is the greatest fuel, the most useful fuel because it's, you know, it's just energy, but it's very thick, very dense, very effective. That's also why they're afraid of us too. I mean, what would it be like if you as a human walked onto a planet that was made up of supermen? Okay? You know, you wouldn't be so comfy. Like, holy crap, these guys are flying around, they can pulverize walls and basically make me their plaything. Okay? And then again, you know, you'd be like, I think I need to learn how to be like them first, and then I'll come down. So that's why they're observing us. That's why they're partaking in our system too. It's because they're also basically collaborating on one level, and they're learning from us, and they're learning the same lessons so that they can enjoy the same densification of energy. This is basically human potential. They want human potential. They want empowerment the way that we are. We're just not in the perceptive state to realize how empowered we are to make differences. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they actually, you know, they're quite looking forward to us joining some of us joining the ranks to help free other planets. Anyhow.
Now, what would you say to the person that still hasn't quite, say, caught up and is not totally clear and doesn't feel that energy wave? They still feel like, say it's in their throat chakra. They feel like they're still sitting with it because they don't want to voice it because they don't want to have to. This came up in conversation with somebody yesterday. You know how we don't want to bring anything else into the world that we don't want. So rather than uncreate something we don't want, we're just sitting with the energy and kind of being quiet with it because there's still not enough intensity to bring to fruition what we want to speak into creation. What would you say to that person that's still sort of sitting with it? They're getting a little bit frustrated with themselves, not sure if it's a career.
Since the person's already sitting, since the person's already sitting, and not seeming like he's doing anything, then just write down what you really want to happen, Make it broad enough that you're comfortable with it, you know, and just write down what you want. Note that it's okay. You don't have to be a monk with things that you want. You are a reality inviter, There is no such thing as a reality where you're not affecting it. So it's your dimension, your reality point. Don't worry about the outer reality that you perceive, the 3D matrix. You know, all that it's doing is corralling your reality to support it. You're the pillar behind its existence. So start with you. You can live it independently. Note that all you're really doing is giving yourself to enter into a perception, into a reality where you already have access to what you've asked for. And all you're doing is bridging all those belief systems that are from here to there. Let your higher being do it for you. Trust and know that your higher being exists. And if what you need to do is begin to believe you have a higher being, well, then seek experiences that give you an experience of your higher being. I don't care how you do it. You can do it through shamanic rituals. You can do it with mushrooms. I don't care. There's a million different ways to experience your higher being. Do it through yoga. Do it through, there's just so many different ways, okay, to realize that there's more to you and that there's a broader part of you. You need to know that that exists first. Otherwise, you'll see no reason to empower it. You'll do things like empowering God, okay? And most people don't trust God because they don't understand him enough. And they're not comfortable with the way that he does things. But you can just do it. You can just write down, speak it out loud, write it, and give yourself this truth that your word is heard. And it has to be, because it literally is your higher being saying it. But what your higher being is doing is it's making it more dense. It's giving it life, a physical life. The more that you give it physical life and say that your desires will be so and that you expect them and that you're comfortable with them, okay, then you're giving it more life and spawning it into existence. And you can do that with your perception as easily as writing it down, telling your friends. This whole, this thing where, like, before you experience it, you need to sort of, like, fake it till you make it or something.
Yes, yes.
That's actually true. I mean, it's really fundamentally
a lot of
true.
ways.
But you can't
right.
you can't add the ingredient of blame, otherwise it just turns it into misery. Okay? You can't blame anything. You can't blame yourself for whatever. You just have to know that, I'll try it a little differently. Okay?
Well, I have a story because I ended up with my red sports car, and it's not a Ferrari.
Okay.
Years ago, we wanted a diesel. We wanted diesels, and it turned out that we looked at Volkswagens. We ended up going to the dealer, and from a dealer, we bought a Golf. And then I got on their mailing list because I decided, since we had one diesel, because they do so well, it's a Volkswagen, that we wanted another one. And I got on the mailing list, and it took 3 years for another one to come in. But I was not attached to the outcome. I didn't have an agenda of when I wanted this diesel to come in. I just knew that I wanted another diesel, and I thought it was going to be a Golf. So I had postponed having my inspection done for my car because I actually couldn't get the energy going within myself to get this inspection done, but this was actually my higher self orchestrating this so I would show up at the dealer at the right time, because when I went to the dealer, there happened to be in mint condition a beautiful red Volkswagen Bug convertible that actually ended up there 2 days before from South Carolina, and it was garage kept, and it sat in the car. The person that had it had like 18 other cars because they were like a car collector, and had I not shown up at that time to get this work done on the other car, I would have missed this opportunity. So here I am thinking, stressing myself out, saying, I should have gotten this car in, but I couldn't do it because it snowed. And then I actually called them and said, I'm running late with getting this car in to get the inspection and to get, this stuff with the recall and all this stuff. And they said, it's fine. And this was totally orchestrated for me to get this other Volkswagen.
Mm-hmm.
So all I said is I wanted just to have a diesel, but I didn't have any preference of whether it was going to be a Golf or the Volkswagen Beetle, which I'm totally in love with. And it's red.
Perfect. So you see, there's infinite examples out there. If you want to find them, you'll find them. All right. You want to find proof? Do the process. I want proof, and ask for it without knowing when and how it shows up. Funny because sometimes you're so detached you forget that you asked for it and it still shows up. You're like, you know what? I just realized I asked for this. Oh, now it's okay. Okay?
Yep.
So
it's literally not being resistant to the result. And so what happens is your higher being is kind of cool and sneaky, a little bit like a ninja. It gets you to go through all the different things that hold you back, in a subtle, natural way, so that when you get there, you're cool. Because, you still have to deal with the day-to-day details, but let's just leave the bigger details to your higher being. And, whatever you are not sure of how to get there, then just write it down, write it on a piece of paper, burn it in a sacred fire or with a candle or something like that, make it more physical, read it aloud several times, tell your friends. Don't tell your friends, in the way that you feel like, oh, man, I'm lying to them, but just tell them it's coming. Tell them it's coming, and it'll be really fun when it gets here, that sort of thing, okay? I do have to go in. That's kind of my lunch break here, and
okay,
I had a lot of fun today. And if anybody wants to keep tabs on me, they can go to julienwells.com. Julien is spelled with an E. And, I'm starting to put stuff out on YouTube when I've got my shows in case anyone wants to do that. And, of course, I do sessions if you want to talk directly with me at jwsessions.simplybook.me. But there's also links on my website, julienwells.com. And I hope, we can talk again sometime.
We definitely will, Julien. Everybody else can stay with me because I've got a couple more examples of just a couple things that tie in with this, and then I'll bring my closing remarks. But I know you got to go, so you go ahead.
All right. Take care, everyone. See you later.
Okay. So that's Julien Wells, and I just want to say next week, actually, we're going to tie in some things with Groundhog Day, and I've got Willie Whitefeather who is going to be coming on. And I see that I've got a call, so I'm just going to go ahead and see if this person wants to say hi if they do have a question. Hello, area code 310, you're on the air if you have a question. And maybe not. Maybe they're just listening, but I thought it would be good. Okay. Well, anyway, I did want to talk to the other side of this with the weather again. It's been kind of interesting here. We've talked about this, the polar extremes. So how does this tie in? We can get into also what does collective consciousness choose as an oversoul. We are looking at this individually, but we can also look at what is going on with the collective, and I do feel that this weather actually has something to do with collective consciousness and the consciousness of the earth. So that's all I have to say about that, and I will be going away next week on Thursday to Puerto Rico. So until next, everybody, happy trails to you till we meet again. Namaste, and I'm going to play some meditation music by Christopher Timms, who's been a guest on this show. It's called The Blue Hue. I think you'll enjoy this very much. And remember, again, next week, the show's actually going to be on a Monday, and we're going to talk about collective Groundhog Day, how when you do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, it is actually the definition of insanity.